Hello everyone, amateur meteorologist. First and weather here. It is December 26th, 2021. I hope you had a great Christmas and a good holiday. This is going to be another video looking into the pattern for the next few days and into the beginning of January, and also just a general look at what type of weather the eastern coast and specifically the mid-Atlantic could be seeing over the next few days. So first off, this is a look at the temperature anomalies over the last, or for Christmas Day actually. And you can see it's been a very warm Christmas day. I think Richmond, Virginia, had its second warmest Christmas temperature since in recorded history. The record being 75 on in 2015, and on yesterday we hit 73. So again, very warm Christmas, very warm temperature anomalies. You can see basically the entire country basked in red, with only about a small area colder than average temp anomalies in the far northern portions of the lower 48. So again, very warm Christmas Day, and that's just been the trend this entire month. We've had heat wave after heat wave, torch after torch. Many areas are running, believe it or not, 10 to 15 degrees above average, especially as you go further south into Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Louisiana, Arkansas. So it's just been a very, very warm month. I can't find a single location that's seen below average conditions except perhaps far northern Montana, northwestern Washington. So again, very cold December. Places along the East Coast, like Central VA, running about 5 to 7 degrees above average. Just absolute insanity going on right now. You have basically the entire eastern seaboard seeing temperatures at least 3 to 5 degrees above average. So, long story short, it has been a warm, warm month. But hopefully, things are looking to change. Of course, as a weather weenie, I always hope for a cold and snowy pattern, but you have to be objective when making forecasts, and you have to give the hard, honest truth. And past couple weeks, I've been saying that it just does not look favorable for a pattern change until we can get that MJO into phases 8 and maybe phase 7. So if we look to the GFS Ensemble now, we can see that we still have that persistent southeast ridge, that big ridge coupling all the way up to Greenland. So that while this negative NAO is there, it's a bit misleading because you have all this warm air transport going right into southern Canada, while you have very cold Arctic air in the northwestern U.S. Now, one thing I do want to point out is you have a very, very powerful ridge just south of Alaska. That's a huge change from what we've been seeing, where Alaska has been seeing record cold air over the past 3 or 4 weeks, because you've had a very strong positive EPO, so very strong troughing over Alaska, and that's about to change. You're seeing a negative EPO right now with a negative PNA, negative NAO, and about neutral to slightly negative AO. And so what this can do is this can help to establish cross-polar flow. Hence, you're seeing that Arctic outbreak in the northwest right now. You're seeing 3 to 6 inches of snow in Seattle today, high temperatures in the upper 20s for Seattle for the rest of the week. So pretty significant outbreak, to say the least. And now as we go through time, you can see that that ridge stays in place. That Arctic air in the west continues to seep down into the Rockies and sort of settle down deep into California, Nevada, Colorado, Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. The southeast continues to see that ridge, but keep in mind though, the surface is where we live. We do not live at 500 millibars. So while the 500 millibar chart shows a ridge, you still could be seeing average to maybe even slightly below average conditions in the eastern part of the country, because of the fact you do have this negative NAO here. So you still have cold air trying to funnel in, fighting against the warming influence of this ridge right here. And so this is not a torch pattern by any means. This is not a cold pattern, but it's more of an average to slightly above average pattern for the December 30th time period. And again, very cold in the west, very below average, very active and stormy. Now, as you go further through time, you can see that you still have that sort of ridging trying to sort of, take or set up over Alaska. And then you have a good system that comes through. So this January 2nd, January 3rd, you're going to have a neat little system come through, a good cold front. This will help to sort of eliminate the above average conditions, and it should knock temperatures to near average to slightly below average for the region. And that should be our first shot of cold air in a while. I'm talking weeks. And that should be a welcome relief. So while high temperatures will be average or slightly below average, it's going to feel downright cold for many of you guys out there. You can see that very nicely negative EPO for Alaska, helping to establish that cross-polar flow. And you can see this is very encouraging. You have ridging all across the polar regions. You have a negative NAO, you have a negative AO, you have negative EPO. You even have some ridging in the Urals, which is good to help destabilize that polar vortex. If that can get involved maybe in the latter portion of January, that could be very helpful for sustaining that cold in February, if that can happen. But you can see here that the southeast ridge is now very far suppressed, and you have that system coming through for the to mark the start of the new year, 2022. Hard to believe that's already here, but that comes through, right? Might bring some good snows to the interior New England, maybe even some backside snow for places like Pennsylvania and the Northeast corridor. Not for the Mid-Atlantic probably, but maybe for northeastern sections and New England. And then after that, the GFS Ensemble wants to rebuild some of that ridging. I don't know of how much I buy this, but then after that, it really wants to swing that cold air back down into the eastern U.S. And it has a little bit of a southeast ridge, but again, I don't really think that's going to be a major factor other than pushing the storm track just a bit further north, because conditions here still will be cool. It's just going to prevent you from seeing sort of these Miller A tracks type systems, but rather you're going to have storm systems go like this and then transfer their energy off the coast and then right up. So as you can see right here, you have a negative NAO, you have a negative EPO, negative AO, you have a negative PNA. That is hurting us a little bit. If this could be positive, you would see that southeast ridge really get suppressed. But if you look at the surface temperature anomalies on the ensemble, you can see that even though we have that southeast ridge, temp anomalies are running slightly below average for January 11th. And if we go even further back, you can see here that temperature anomalies are running cold. The southeast ridge does make a brief appearance and things get a little bit warmer, but this is not a blowtorch pattern after the new year. And so that is some good news. You see that very cold Arctic air is still stuck back here, but you do have that cold air leaking south and southeastward, which is definitely very encouraging. And if you look at the upper air wind pattern, this is important to see where those storm tracks are going to be going. And you can see that this is obviously a bit too far to the north. So this is not going to be a mid-Atlantic southeast type snow setup where you see a major snowstorm for the mid-Atlantic and southeast. This is just not that. For that to happen, we would need that positive PNA to really establish itself, and we would need that cold air to sink just a bit further south. This for me is more of a northern mid-Atlantic, New England, coastal New England sort of snowstorm pattern where those storm tracks go right through the Ohio Valley. The energy transfers, and you get a new low, maybe just south of New York, right along New Jersey, and that rides up the coast, bombs out, and you see very good snows for interior New England, coastal New England, but not really for places like Central Virginia, Maryland, North Carolina. Those areas need to see this area of greatest wind anomalies go just a bit further south with that PNA turning positive. Now, if we look at the MJO, you can see the MJO is trying to go a bit into phase 7, or it already is in phase 7, but then go into phase 8. But one thing about to notice is this is just getting pushed back and back. For example, a week ago it had the MJO entering phase 8 by January 1st. Now it's at January 10th. So I think this is typical La Nina impacts for the MJO. It really just pushes it back and back because of where the area of coolest waters are. But again, phase 7 is not a blowtorch pattern for the eastern U.S. during La Nina. Phase 8 is ideal for southeast snowstorms, but phase 7 it's all right. It's not too shabby. If you look at the European long-range MJO forecast, it's even less bullish than the Australian. You can see it takes the MJO into about phase 7, just kind of makes it go into the circle of death. So that would definitely not be good. I mean, some members do take it into phase 8, but a lot of them keep it very close to neutral, if that. And so if you look at the correlations between phase 7, because it does look like that for the next 10 days at least, we're going to be stuck in phase 7. If you look at phase 7 correlations in January for La Ninas, right, you can see that this is what we get. Of course, this is not ideal, but this is definitely very decent. You have that sort of almost negative EPO, a hint of the positive PNA, the biggest cold anomalies censored over the central and midwestern U.S., and you have a bit of a negative NAO. I mean, this is misleading because this is a thumb ridge, so this is not a true negative NAO. In fact, this forces systems to sort of ride up the Ohio Valley and cut inland. So this is a very good pattern for places like New York, places like Ohio. Excuse me. This is not really a very good mid-Atlantic snowstorm pattern. I think that's what the theme is going to be for the first week or so of January, maybe even to the second week. I don't think the mid-Atlantic is going to really see a good snowstorm, especially for the first 2 weeks of January. Maybe after that things could change, but right now I just do not see a snowstorm threat for the mid-Atlantic for the first 2 weeks. I think we're not going to see warm weather. There is going to be a definite pattern change. We're going to see a return to cooler weather, colder than average conditions, but we're just not going to see those very cold anomalies for the region, or those snow anomalies for the region becoming positive. I think the area of greatest snow anomalies will be confined to New England. Now, if we look at the teleconnections, I want to point out that things are looking a bit more favorable. So if you look at the P&A, it's just been bottomed out negative, but in fact, it is forecast to eventually potentially reach neutral, slightly negative, not be as positive by the middle portion of January. If you look at the NAO, it's forecasted to stay neutral to slightly negative. The AO is forecasted to go into potentially deep negative territory. So that's good news. You always like to see that if you're a snow lover. And then now let's just go through the GFS AT&T run. This is again not a forecast by any means, but it just goes to show you what the models, the dynamical models are thinking and what's going on. So again, this is for December 27th. You can see cold out west, not too much cold on the east, pretty warm, right? This system comes through, fizzles out, again, comes through, fizzles out. Nothing really, no big weather events. Now, this is the system I mentioned for January 2nd, January 3rd by the GFS Ensemble. So if you look at that right here, this is the system I was talking about. This little wave right here, this big cold front coming through. This is what the GFS shows it as. And you can see it has some very good snows on the northern side, the cold sector of the system. Now, the exact track of this is going to have a big impact on where those snows are. So you could see some pretty good some snows ahead of it in the cold sector before you switch over to rain in interior New England. And then after that, the GFS wants to show sort of an anti-front system with cold air on the backside colliding with the moisture, leading to a changeover to snow. I'm not really sure if I buy this. Historically speaking, these systems do not perform well, especially in the mid-Atlantic. The cold air always arrives far too late, and the moisture always leaves far too early. But again, this is what the model is showing, but I just don't really buy this. I think the main takeaway to take from this is that after January 1st, we're going to see our first shot of cold air in a very long time. You can see that goes through. We have some nice lake effects squalls coming through. After that, the strong northwesterly winds delivering that very cold air. After that, things kind of stay average to seasonable, nothing too out of the extraordinary, and then the model has another big system comes through, delivers another shot of very potent Arctic air, not Arctic air, but continental polar air. You have a big mid-latitude cyclone coming through, and that's about it. But you can see that it's not really showing a very active pattern or a very snowy pattern for the mid-Atlantic. I think, again, like I've said before, I think the biggest snow threat is going to be for the next 2 weeks at least, up until about early January, up to the 10th of January. The biggest snow threat is going to be in this region right here, like this. It's not really going to be in this region right here. Let me redraw that, like somewhere. So basically south of this line right here, I don't really think you're going to see a big snowstorm. I think coastal New England also is a bit lower. The best chance of really seeing a significant snowstorm is these regions right here. And so again, that's just how it's looking like right now, unless we can get a quicker transition to MJO phase 8, unless we can get some of those other changes to sort of initiate. I don't really see a pattern change or a very snowy pattern for the Mid-Atlantic, at least for the time being. Now again, I think this is way better than what we've been seeing currently. Even for the Mid-Atlantic, we'll see high temperatures, seasonable, average to slightly below average for the start of January. We'll see a few systems coming through, maybe a couple, light, very minor snow events, potentially as you go further north into Maryland and northwestern Virginia. But again, the main snow area should be for interior New England. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.